The Arado Ar 196 was a shipboard reconnaissance low-wing monoplane aircraft built by the German firm of Arado starting in 1936. The next year it was selected as the winner of a design contest and became the standard aircraft of the Kriegsmarine throughout World War II. Design and development. In 1933, the Kriegsmarine looked for a standardized shipboard reconnaissance aircraft. After a brief selection period, the Reichsluftfahrtministerium decided on the Heinkel He-60 biplane. This was one of a line of developments of a basic biplane airframe that appeared as a number of float planes, trainers, and fighters. Deliveries started in a matter of months. By 1935, it was found that the He-60's performance was lacking and the RLM asked Heinkel to design its replacement. The result was the He-114. The first prototype was powered by the Daimler-Benz DB600 inline engine, but it was clear that supplies of this engine would be limited and the production versions turned to the BMW 132 radial engine instead. The plane proved to have only slightly better performance than the He-60, and its sea handling was poor. Rushed modifications resulted in a series of 9 prototypes in an attempt to solve some of the problems, but they didn't help much. The Navy gave up, and the planes were eventually sold off to Romania, Spain and Sweden. In October 1936, the RLM asked for a He-114 replacement. The only stipulations were that it would use the BMW 132, and they wanted prototypes in both twin-float and single-float configurations. Designs were received from Dornier, Gotha, Arado and Focke-Wulf. Heinkel declined to tender, contending that the He-114 could still be made to work. With the exception of the Arado low-wing monoplane design, all were conventional biplanes that gave the Arado better performance than any of the others, and the RLM ordered 4 prototypes. The RLM was also rather conservative by nature, so they also ordered 2 of the Focke-Wulf FW62 design as a backup. It quickly became clear that the Arado would work effectively, and only 4 prototypes of the FW62 were built. The R196 prototypes were all delivered in summer 1937, V1 and V2 with twin floats as A models, and V3 and V4 on a single float as B models. Both versions demonstrated excellent water handling, and there seemed to be little to decide one over the other, since there was a possibility of the smaller outrigger floats on the B models digging in. The twin-float A model was ordered into production. A single additional prototype, V5, was produced in November 1938 to test final changes. 10 A0s were delivered in November and December 1938, with a single 7.92mm MG-15 machine gun in the rear seat for defense. 5 similarly equipped B0s were also delivered to land-based squadrons. This was followed by 20 A1 production models starting in June 1939, enough to equip the surface fleet. Starting in November, production switched to the heavier land-based A2 model. It added shackles for 2 50 kg bombs, 2 20mm MGFF cannons in the wings, and a 7.92mm MG-17 machine gun in the cowling. The A4 replaced it in December 1940, strengthening the airframe, adding another radio, and switching props to a VDM model. The apparently misnumbered A3, which had additional strengthening of the airframe, replaced the A4. The final production version was the A5 from 1943, which changed radios and cockpit instruments, and switched the rear gun to the much improved MG-81Z. Overall, 541 R196s were built before production ended in August 1944, about 100 of these from SNCA and Fokker plants. The R196C was a proposed aerodynamically refined version. The R196C project was cancelled in 1941. Operational history. The plane was loved by its pilots, who found it handled well both in the air and on the water. With the loss of the German surface fleet, the A1s were added to coastal squadrons and continued to fly reconnaissance missions and submarine hunts into late 1944. Two notable operations were the capture of HMS Seal, and the repeated interception of RAF Armstrong Whitworth Whitley bombers. Although it was no match for a fighter, it was considerably better than its Allied counterparts, and generally considered the best of its class, owing to its good handling on water. The Finnish Air Force utilized R196s just for transporting and supplying special forces patrols behind enemy lines, landing on small lakes in remote areas. Several fully equipped soldiers were carried in the fuselage. Arado in Allied hands. The first Arado R196 to fall into Allied hands was an example belonging to the German cruiser Admiral Hipper, which was captured in Lyngstad by a Norwegian Marinens Flyvebath-Fabrik MF-11 seaplane of the Trøndelag Naval District on 8 April 1940, at the dawn of the Norwegian campaign. After being towed to Kristiansund by the torpedo boat HNOMS Ild, it was used against its former owners, flying with Norwegian markings. At 3:30 on 18 April, the Arado was evacuated to the UK by a Royal Norwegian Navy Air Service pilot. The plane was shortly thereafter crashed by a British pilot while on transit to the Helensburgh Naval Air Base for testing. At the end of the war, at least one Arado R196 was left at a Norwegian airfield and kept in use as a liaison aircraft by the Royal Norwegian Air Force for a year on the West Coast. Former military operators: Bulgaria, Bulgarian Air Force; Finland, Finnish Air Force; Germany, Kriegsmarine; Luftwaffe; Norway, Royal Norwegian Navy Air Service; Royal Norwegian Air Force; Soviet Union, Soviet Air Force; Soviet Naval Aviation. Aircraft on display. An aircraft operated by the Bulgarian Air Force is displayed at the Museum of Aviation and the Air Force, Plovdiv, Bulgaria. An aircraft that formerly equipped their German cruiser Prinz Eugen is in storage at the Paul Garber facility of the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum, and awaiting restoration. Another aircraft from the Prinz Eugen was displayed from 1949 to 1995 at the Naval Air Station Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, and subsequently transferred to the National Naval Aviation Museum at Naval Air Station Pensacola, Florida. The upper fuselage and canopy were damaged during transit, and it remained in storage awaiting restoration. In December 2012, it was packed into containers and shipped to Nordholz, Germany. Restoration began in August 2013, in time for that city's celebration for 100 years of German naval aviation. The plane, on long-term loan from the National Naval Aviation Museum, will eventually be displayed at the Naval Air Wing 3 headquarters at Nordholz Naval Air Base. The aircraft hit Historical Museum, Solo, Norway, has on display an R196A2 fuselage frame raised from the wreck of the German cruiser Blucher in Oslofjord. Another aircraft is known to lie in the Jonsvatnet, a lake near Trondheim in Norway. A number of wartime German aircraft have been recovered from the lake, but the R196 remains undisturbed as its crew were killed when it crashed there in 1940 and it has the status of a war grave. A wrecked Arado R196A3, believed to be D1+A, was snagged by a fishing trawler off the island of Arakia in 1982 at a depth of 91 meters. It was towed out of the fishing lanes to shallower waters. The upside-down plane, with fuselage and wings mostly intact, has become a popular spot for scuba diving. Specifications. Data from General Characteristics. Crew 2. Length 11.0 meters. Wingspan 12.4 meters. Height 4.45 meters. Wing area 28.4 square meters. Empty weight 2,990 kilograms. Max takeoff weight 3,720 kilograms. Power plant 1 times BMW 132 K9 cylinder radial engine, 960 PS. Performance maximum speed 311 km/h. Range 1,080 km. Service ceiling 7,010 meters. Rate of climb 300 meters per minute. Wing loading 98.2 kilograms per square meter. Power mass 167 W per kilogram. Armament guns 1 times 7.92 mm MG15 machine gun. 1 times 7.92 mm MG17 machine gun. 2 times 20 mm MG FF cannons. Bombs 2 times 50 kilograms bombs.